I'm walking through a secret city. A city that hasn't been touched for over 50 years. Its tunnels stretch for 55 kilometres in a feat of truly remarkable engineering. And the capacity was 16,000 people. 16,000 people under the rock.
There were at least 2 hospitals, huge kitchens, laundry facilities, sanitation facilities, storage for food. Some of the tunnels big enough to take 2 lorries side by side, all sorts of tunnels all over the rock.
From the outside, you would never know it's here.
I keep walking past places that look like this. I think we should take a look.
But it's one of the most impressive examples of defence engineering the world has ever seen.
Look at this. So this is an old pillbox. And here it is, just right here, washed up on the beach. Look at this one. This one is sneaky. I nearly missed it. Take a look at this. That right there looks like somewhere they would have placed artillery. I can spot some more in the distance here. Oh, there's one down here. They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Everywhere you go here, you're surrounded by reminders of war, of defence, and of survival.
I'm not even out looking for them right now, but look what I've just spotted.
So the question is why? Why has Britain gone to such extreme lengths to protect this tiny outpost? And why, in an age of rising powers and renewed global tension, does Gibraltar still matter more than ever before?
Okay, so I'm in a very wet and rainy Gibraltar. Now, Gibraltar is a tiny overseas territory right here on the tip of the Iberian Peninsula. And while despite the Mediterranean architecture, the monkeys, and the fact that you'll hear Spanish widely spoken, standing here, you're on British soil, or rock. But, well, there's more about that later.
Britain's control of Gibraltar began in the early 1700s, during a major turning point in European history. When the Spanish king died without children, he named a French prince as his successor. But this French prince was also already heir to the French kingdom. Essentially, this succession decision set the stage for a new superpower stretching across Europe and the Americas. Britain, the Dutch Republic and their allies feared it would destroy the balance of power. So to stop it, they backed a rival claimant, triggering the War of the Spanish Succession. As a part of this, British and Dutch forces captured Gibraltar from Spain in 1704, and when the war ended nearly a decade later, the Treaty of Utrecht formalised the new balance of power. Spain ceded Gibraltar to Britain, and the French and Spanish crowns were permanently separated to prevent a future union. But despite being just 2.6 square miles, Spain was determined to win it back. Over the next 80 years, with France's help, they would launch 4 separate sieges, each one only tightening Britain's grip on the territory. Because Spain had underestimated one thing. Britain now had the rock, and they were starting to get really good at using it. You can see straight away why this rock is so valuable. Just the sheer height alone gives you a massive advantage. You can place cannons and other weaponry up here, and obviously you can see for miles in every direction. So if an enemy is going to attack, well, you're going to see them coming before they even get close. But they didn't just use its height advantage, they started digging. They carved out an underground network that could move troops, store supplies, and position artillery in places the enemy never expected. All within the protection of 1,400 feet of monolithic limestone.
So by the time the Great Siege of Gibraltar came in 1779, despite being outnumbered 6 men to 1, they'd turned this place into a near indestructible war machine.
Britain held on, retaining Gibraltar thanks to its new system of defence. And in the following years, they added to it bit by bit until it reached about 7 miles in total. But what they built was just the beginning. The extent of this network was about to explode.
Ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe, dass ich mich in diesen Jahren für dich eingesetzt habe, dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwendet habe im Dienste meines Volkes. Gib du jetzt eine Stimme, wenn ja.
When Hitler took power in 1933, most of Europe didn't know it yet, but war was coming, and in Gibraltar, preparations quietly began. They'd seen Europe go to war before, and this time they were determined to be ready. And so they did what they did best. They started digging, and beneath the surface, a hidden city began to take shape.
All this tunnelling that was happening at a pace that was totally unprecedented. Everybody was just thinking about the war efforts. In fact, at one point, they were excavating 7,500 tons a day. I just can't get around that figure. It's such a huge figure. By the end, about 34 miles of tunnel had been dug through the rock. Some of the tunnels big enough to take 2 lorries side by side, but all sorts of tunnels all over the rock, to the point that there are now more miles of tunnel inside the rock than there are miles of road outside the rock.
It's crazy to think what they achieved. Within the network, it had a hospital, a bakery, a laundry room, a telecommunications point, a reservoir for fresh water, everything necessary to sustain a small city. And the capacity was 16,000 people. 16,000 people under the rock.
Suddenly, Gibraltar changed, and its sole purpose was to be a military centre. And so, I don't think you can walk for more than 100 yards before coming across a military installation of some type.
And I soon found out that Geraldine wasn't wrong. A short walk along the coast showed that it wasn't just the tunnels. There were military installations in every corner of this territory.
Okay, I think I might have just spotted something. That, to me, looks like somewhere where they would place artillery, like a mortar or something. Look at this. So this is an old pillbox. They're essentially concrete defensive structures that would have slits or holes in the sides so that the soldiers could produce gunfire, but under the protection of the concrete. And here it is, just right here, washed up on the beach. I can spot some more in the distance here. See how many defense mechanisms you can spot, whether that's platforms for artillery units to fire from, or loopholes in the wall where they'd be able to fire their guns from. Look at this one. This one is sneaky. I nearly missed it. Look, there's one down here. They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
But it's not just along the coast that you'll see remnants of war. Walk through the town and you'll spot them hidden in plain sight. Bomb shelters given new life. Former gun positions built into everyday places. Street names that still whisper Gibraltar's military past and, of course, the jewel of the crown, 34 miles of tunnel network.
I keep walking past places that look like this, like a little tiny opening. I think we should take a look. It's kind of freaky. I really should have brought a flashlight. Whoa. Oh my God, it goes on for miles. The shape of these structures, it looks like old Nissan huts, like what they would use in World War II to store everything really. Hello? It's crazy that, you just take one turn and you're in another tunnel. They are everywhere. I mean, it's not surprising really, because there's 55 kilometres of tunnel buried into this rock. And to put it into perspective, Gibraltar itself is 2.6 square kilometres. Just right here, inside of the rock. Piece of history. Okay, I need to try and remember how the hell I got in here.
All in place to turn Gibraltar into a fortress. And for good reason too. Hitler was preparing plans for Operation Felix, which saw a total invasion and takeover of Gibraltar.
So what happened? Did Hitler invade? Was Gibraltar occupied by the Nazis? No. In order for the Nazis' plan to work, they needed passage through Spain. But the British had turned Gibraltar into a fortified war machine. And Franco, Spain's dictator at the time, knew that any attack would drag Spain into the war and that the battle for the territory would be long and brutal. Now, I'm not saying this was the only factor, because it certainly wasn't, but the extreme lengths the Brits had gone to make this territory as impenetrable as possible certainly played their part. Operation Felix was abandoned, the Allies won the war, and Gibraltar once again remained under British control. Okay, so we know how Britain took Gibraltar, and we even know how they've retained it. But if you're anything like me, you're probably asking why? Why has Britain gone to such extreme lengths to protect an area the size of Whitby or half the size of LAX if you're American? And why does seemingly everybody, including Hitler's Nazi Germany, want a piece of it? Well, I want to show you something.
This is the Strait of Gibraltar, one of the most important waterways in the world. Why? Well, let's zoom out for a second. Suppose you're a cargo ship, loaded up in Brazil, carrying coffee, soybeans, and iron ore, heading for Europe. You cross the Atlantic Ocean, approaching Spain and Portugal, but there's only one way into the Mediterranean, through the Strait of Gibraltar. From here, you'll deliver your cargo to ports in Spain, France, and Italy, and you'll help keep South European industry and supply chains moving. Let's up the stakes a little. This time you're a tanker, setting off from the Middle East. Your cargo? Millions of barrels of crude oil, bound for refineries in the UK, Germany, and the Netherlands. You take the fastest route, of course, through the Suez Canal, across the Mediterranean, and now there's only one way out, through the Strait of Gibraltar. And you're not alone. Around 1/3 of the world's oil shipments have to pass through this narrow strait. And as we saw with the Suez Canal incident in 2021, any disruptions to this trade flow can be economically catastrophic. Okay, let me give you one more example, because it's not just Europe that relies on this strait. Let's say you're a container ship, loaded with electronics and clothing from China, heading for the east coast of the United States. You have two options. You can take the long way around across the Pacific and through the Panama Canal, which is a slow and expensive journey, or you can take a shortcut, sailing west through the Suez Canal, crossing the Mediterranean, and exiting via... Well, I think you get the idea. The strait is an extremely important part of the way world trade functions, so controlling the territory next to it means you have the power to influence things if and when you need to, like in times of war. If you hold Gibraltar, you can block access entirely, cutting off supplies to anyone relying on the Mediterranean. And you control military access. Any navy, whether friendly or hostile, has to move right past your coastline, in range of your guns, your radars, and your intelligence operations. And in times of conflict, you get to decide who comes and goes. This isn't just theoretical, it's happened before. During World War II, the Royal Navy used Gibraltar to intercept Axis supply lines. During the Napoleonic Wars, they did the exact same thing to the French. And that strategic leverage hasn't gone away. In fact, some argue that it may be more important now than ever.
Things have changed. The threat we now face is more serious, more immediate, and more unpredictable than at any time since the Cold War.
It's no secret that the UK and NATO see Russia as one of the key threats to its security. So to help understand why Gibraltar still matters, let's take a look at what that threat actually looks like on a map. Okay, So Russia's most powerful naval forces, especially their nuclear submarines, are based up around here, in Murmansk and Severomorsk. If they ever wanted to reach the North Atlantic, to threaten NATO supply lines, or even the US East Coast, they'd have to squeeze through this narrow stretch of ocean here, which is called the GR-UK Gap. Unfortunately for them, Denmark, Iceland and the United Kingdom are all part of NATO, so that route is heavily watched and extremely difficult to get through in a time of war. So there's only really one other realistic option to get their fleet into the Atlantic, which in this hypothetical situation, if we're presuming that Russia would be at war with the US, would be critical, and that's via the Mediterranean. By controlling the Strait of Gibraltar, as well as the GR-UK Gap, NATO can make it extremely hard for Russia to get any serious naval power into the Atlantic. And Russia aside, any future threat too. When this much trade, energy, and military hardware flows through a choke point this narrow, control equals long-term leverage for the UK, and subsequently, its allies.
For over 300 years, Britain has fought to hold on to this place. And we've seen the evidence, from the brutal sieges of the past to the vast underground network of tunnels that turned Gibraltar into an impenetrable fortress. And as the world has changed from wooden ships to steel battleships, from cannon fire to intelligence warfare, Gibraltar has never lost its importance. Because this isn't just a rock. It's a gateway, a choke point, a strategic weapon that gives the UK and subsequently NATO an advantage over the world's rising superpowers. Russia still passes through here, China continues to expand its naval reach in the region, and half the world's trade proceeds to flow through these waters. But it all happens under Britain's watch.
Because you're still watching, I would hope that it's because you enjoyed it. And if you did, then please do consider subscribing, because I will be producing more. I can't promise to post consistently because they take me so long, but hopefully by subscribing it means you won't miss the next one. And it helps show me that there is a potential audience for this, and all of the effort going into it is worth it. But regardless of that, thank you so much. Love you. Bye-bye.